What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down some very important news that just came out from the Fed that's causing the market to get a rug pull and what this means for the future of the markets going forward. But before I break the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks, and the offer ends in just 6 days from now. Anyways, for Tesla, as you guys can see, this thing is getting a very, very big rejection. Tesla pumped all the way up to about this 187.5 area. They got a little rejection since yesterday. We did call this out. And instead of getting a bounce, we got lots of bad news involving European sales. European sales are down over 2% year over year, and there's a bit of a decline, which is a little bit negative for the share price. But on top of that, we were waiting for the FOMC minutes to come out. And this actually caused the market to get a rug pull. And this is very, very ironic because you have to remember that Jerome Powell was continuing to say that inflation's under control, things are going to be fine, don't worry, the Fed is confident they're going to take care of everything. That's why the market's been pumping. Then we had more Fed speakers that came out on Monday and Tuesday of this week. They helped the market pump even more. That's part of why the market also pumped again for the past 2 days, because they kept saying things are okay. The Fed is going to continue to monitor the situation, this and that. But if we look at the actual FOMC minutes, get more insights from other Fed speakers and other Fed officials, they have different views. They're talking about how there's been a lack of progress on inflation. They are worried about that, and they're open to the possibility of raising rates again. They've been saying that. It's very, very interesting. They also said that inflation has been more stubborn than what they were expecting since the start of 2024. They're always willing to tighten policy more in case inflation does end up materializing, and they said there's a lot of work that still has to be done. They also mentioned that they are a bit concerned over the lack of progress. That's their quote, not mine, over inflation. So that's very, very interesting. This Jerome Powell guy was the one telling us that everything's okay. Don't worry. The Fed is likely not going to raise rates again. Inflation's been, tumbling. But these other Fed officials are saying something very different. They're a lot more concerned. They're a lot more apprehensive, and they have different views from Jerome Powell and the others. So it's very interesting to see. The Fed is targeting a 2% inflation rate. Uh, Prices are increasing, of course, but the rate at which they're increasing is supposed to slow down. But different Fed officials are saying that they're more concerned about it during the recent meeting, and they actually have less confidence about how things are going to move forward with rate reductions. So they're less confident than before. They're concerned about inflation, and they're talking about how they may have to even be willing to tighten if inflation gets out of hand. They also mentioned that there are several upside risks to inflation, particularly from geopolitical events, and they noted the pressure that inflation was having on consumers, particularly those on the end of the wage scale, excuse me. Some of them are also in a very, very critical position. So, like I said before, many of these people have different views. Many of them are saying that they don't really expect the Fed to raise rates. That's what Waller from the Fed said. But he is warning that you have to see several months before making decisions like that, as they're going to wait for data, and they are open to the possibility of being more restrictive if inflation holds higher. So they're talking about risks of that. Very, very different views from that of what Jerome Powell was saying. So very interesting stuff. You guys can see it right over here. Wall Street, Bloomberg reported this too. Various Fed officials mentioned raising rates if inflation warrants it. They also talked about how there's been not the best inflationary readings. And this is what I was telling you guys before as well, about how a lot of the last inflationary readings were not so good. The latest one was decent, but the rest of them were not as great. So that's something else that's worth noting. When it comes to earnings, okay, even though the market's kind of falling amidst all this news from the Fed, all right, we still have Nvidia's earnings, so we will see if this causes the markets to bounce or if we continue to see a sell-off. I'll be watching this very, very carefully. Looking at Tesla, we've come down quite a bit. We're barely holding this 178 support, so I'll be watching to see if Tesla holds this, at least for the time being. If we lose this, I'll be looking for this to drop all the way down closer to the 175 to 176 area. If we lose 178, we have resistance currently at 181 to 182. That's going to be a tight resistance at our 20 EMA. So we'll see how things go for Tesla. We are still looking a little bit weak. We're just shuffling in the 178 area right now, but there is a risk of downside. There's no sign of a bounce quite yet. And we have to be very careful now with what the Fed just said, and also the negative news involving Tesla with European sales and such. So for Tesla, guys, just be very mindful. It is not the end of the world because Nvidia is announcing its earnings very soon. Whatever Nvidia says could also affect Tesla in the markets. If Nvidia does very well with earnings and guidance, we could get a big bounce tomorrow. This could just be a trap, or we could just continue to fall if Nvidia gets a rug pull. So we'll be very, very open-minded, we'll be very patient, and just know that Nvidia is going to now determine if this continues or not. For Nvidia right now, the share price is still within this range. We're still holding 940, which is not bad whatsoever. We're only down 1%, not bad whatsoever for Nvidia. So we'll have to wait and see. Is Nvidia about to launch all the way up to the 1000s after earnings? Maybe. It might. If you're holding any positions overnight, like Tesla, SPY, and others, be careful because Nvidia's earnings will determine where we end up going. This could launch to the 1000s, or it could get a big rug pull, and this could cause the market to dip. We will have to wait and see. So make sure you guys are ready for this. Make sure you guys are prepared. This is going to be pivotal for the way the market ends up moving. For SPY pumped to its all-time high, but we weren't able to really crack it. Now we ended up coming back down. We're barely holding 528. If we lose this support, we're going to be dipping quite a bit lower. We also lost this trend line right here, which is not the best of signs. So that is a sign of weakness on the chart. If we lose 528, we're going to be looking at 526 and 525. If we end up holding this and we end up bouncing things to Nvidia, look out for 530 all over again, then 530.8. I'll be watching to see, do we launch back to 530 to 530.8, or do we continue to fall the way we're falling? I'll be waiting very, very carefully. The 4 hour is also looking a little bit weak on SPY, so I'm going to be very patient with this and wait and see how this ends up moving. So be careful, guys. Be mindful. Just know that the Fed, once again, has kind of flip-flopped a bit. Different Fed officials have different views, and that is something that has to be accounted for. That's why the market is kind of fearful right now. For the QQQ, we're still holding up decently, but there is a risk of this dipping. But we have our 20 EMA as support at 452. If Nvidia does very well with earnings and this continues to launch, we could actually continue to push back to the all-time high if Nvidia does very well in earnings and Nvidia ends up exploding. If Nvidia gets a rug pull, this is going to be dipping all the way down to about I would say below 450. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with earnings. Make sure you're open minded. Make sure you're prepared just to be safe. That's going to be pivotal for the way we end up moving, and we'll just have to watch and see. For Bitcoin, we're just kind of trading sides. We're actually dipping a little bit towards about that 69,162 area. That's going to be our support. That's where our 20 EMA happens to be. If we lose that, we could be dipping all the way down to some balance at 67,500. If we hold the support, then we could rebound. But for now, we're just going to watch and see and be patient. Nvidia's earnings and the overall market, the structure we get could be very pivotal for the way we end up moving. GME is building some strength. We're holding support nicely. We have to break past 24 to start launching. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to shuffle. If we lose 19, we turn bearish. It's still holding support decently. AMC is also trying to rebound, get closer to 5, so it hasn't really made its move yet. With that being said, guys, for the others out there like Amazon, we're also dipping back down to 182. If we lose that, we have the 200 EMA at 180 to be watching for. Amazon's dipping. Meta's also dipping as well. Just want to be very frank and clear about this. We have this imbalance all the way down here at 465. If we lose 467, watch 465, then 462. So I'll be very, very patient in the process of all of this. With that being said, guys, I just want to say I really appreciate every single one of you. Tesla's showing some weakness, so just be careful. Watch the 178. If we lose this, we will dip a little bit more. We are looking a little bit weaker on Tesla now with all this bad news and all this talk from the Fed. So just be open-minded, but do not turn into a perma bear or perma bull. Just wait and see what happens with Nvidia's earnings. We'll be waiting for this after the market closes. So I'm going to wait for Nvidia's earnings to come out before I give you guys a report on this again. So I'll be gone until then. So I'll see you guys in just a couple of hours. We'll see how Nvidia does. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope Nvidia does well as a company and as a whole. I'm not trying to favor bulls or bears in a way when it comes to the markets. I just want to say that I want the company to do well. So that happens to be favoring the bulls. So I want to make it very clear. Excuse me. I want to make it very clear. We're waiting for Nvidia. Let's hope and see how things end up going for them after the market closes for today. If you're holding anything overnight, just be careful and be very mindful of that you're going to be kind of betting on what Nvidia ends up doing, which is going to have a big effect on the indices in the markets. So get ready, do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you for listening, guys. I'll see you guys after Nvidia's earnings comes out, and peace out.